This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Hey, welcome to Coop's Comedy Corner. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and I want to give a shout out to Jimmy Corhan and Comedy Trainwreck. We have a great show. You know, people, I got to tell you, I've been doing comedy for a long time, on and off. My guest today has been doing it for a really long time. And we're at a point in comedy now where there'll be a show of like 6 or 7 people, and one person will say, I'm the headliner, and they're doing like 15 minutes, and they're not a headliner. But my guest today, he's a headliner. He can probably do 3 hours. He gets standing ovations on the cruise ships all the time at his clubs, and he's funny. And it's Steve McGrew. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? It's so awesome to be here with you again.
I know, we did Cooper Talk a long time ago. And when I started this show, I thought, you know what? I'm getting comics on here. It's comedians, but I had the 2 guys, my friends from Homicide Life on the Street. But I said, who knows comedy stories? Who's been around? Who's done Even at the Improv 5 times? Beat Louis C.K. on Star Search, open for Dolly Parton. It's Mudflap. So that's the thing. I had Alan Steven on too. You guys are like the warriors. You're like the breed, the class before me, but you're the guys who were really bringing it and enjoying it when it started breaking open. You guys were already, so, I mean, why did you get into comedy? I always wonder, because you've been doing it a long time.
Well, yeah, we're the dinosaurs of comedy, I think was the word you're looking for. Yeah. We've left our tracks all across this country. I got into stand-up because comedy was what I knew I wanted to do all my life. I was the cartoonist for the Houston newspaper before I did stand-up. But I had always loved listening to my parents' comedy albums. They had all the back in the 50s and 60s, everybody did comedy albums, So I listened to those, and then I started watching all the guys, all the what they called the second bananas at the time. Those were the guys like Joey Bishop and those guys that would be on Carson. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to be those guys, because you could become a star and be in movies without having to be like the handsome leading man. You just get parts.
So you were in Houston. So when do you said you're a cartoonist. So when do you start doing comedy in Houston? And what was the scene like? Because that was like a thriving scene back in the day.
Oh yeah, I started with Hicks and Kinnison and all those guys at the comedy workshop there. I had been working at the paper, and I was going through a divorce, and I was hanging out with a guy named Bill Hines, the cartoonist who does Tank McNamara, a sports comic strip, and he had been dating a girl that was working at the comedy club. So he said, "You ought to just come out and hang it, go down to the club, get some laughs." Kind of, that kind of stuff. Get your mind off the divorce. And so going down there, I started watching. And I thought, I could do this, and I could go on stage and make fun of her. I could slam her in public. This would be like therapy. So yeah, so it went well the very first time. And this is something I've thought about a lot. If I had not done well the very first time, I don't think I would have ever done it again.
I think you would have, because I did well my first time, and I ate shit my second time, and I didn't come back for a month. But there was a guy named George Sharp in Philly, rest in peace. And George was like, "Yeah, you got something," and he said, "Come back." And so I did come back, and so I'm glad you came back. So you did it good the first time. Now, were Hicks and Kinnison already working out, or were they starting out with you? What was the scenario with those 2 guys?
Well, they were starting out at about the same time. They were already there, but only by a couple of months, a few months. And Hicks was still in the stage of coming in the back door, being too young to hang out at the club. So yeah, and Kinnison, I have to say, a lot of people don't know this. Kinnison is the reason that I'm actually a professional comic, because at one point I decided I can't do this. I'm staying up all night drinking with you guys, and I got to go to work the next day, and something's got to give. And so I was going to go back to my real job, and Kinnison took me aside and gave me a pep talk about, you're really good at this, and you're one of the best comedy editors that I know, that like, you only use enough words to make it work. And you don't want to be 80 years old and wonder if you could have made it, do you? And I'm like, no, I don't.
Now, what do you think? Looking back, what do you think made you a good editor? Because you're right, and as once again, comedy has changed. Sometimes people do these really, really long stories, and there's great storytelling comics. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to deny that. And you tell stories, but back then it was more of a rapid fire. Kinnison had the Bill had the I don't give a fuck attitude.
Yeah.
So what do you think made you a good editor? Because I think personally it's something instinctual. I don't think good comedy can be taught how to write. I think it comes instinctual. I think editing, because I can use too many words, and I always hit up Jeff Martyr and I go, "Yo, should I cut this down?" And he goes, "Hey, dude, yeah." He'll send me back the thing, or I'll send something to Scheidner, and I'll go, "Hey, Rich," and I go, "Is this joke?" And he'll say, "Oh, you should word it like this. Oh, you should word it like this." So what is it? Do you think it was instinctual that you were a good editor?
I think it was probably some instinctual, and the fact that I was all about cartooning. So you had to know what to say in limited forms on the boxes. What I mean? You had to set up punchline or whatever. Like if you read a comic strip, there's not a full frame of dialogue.
Now, so you Kinnison tells you to go professional. So how did you become professional back then? Because when I was started in the late 88, I think I did my first open mic, and by 90 there was already the clubs were established. There was a ton of them. I mean, in the South Jersey, Andy Scarpati had 7 clubs. He gave me 35 weekends of MC work, which made me grow so much as an act. But what was it like? What was the scene like? Because you had Houston, but was there a road back then, or
No.
Where did you guys go to get work?
We the road was just kicking in, and it was bars. It wasn't clubs yet. It was just bars that were doing it. Like a strip bar would have a comedy night. So it'd be a comic, a stripper, a comic, and then it got worse as the night went on. And then all of a sudden weekends started popping up. Like, hey, somebody want to drive to Lubbock to do a show for the weekend? Yeah, I'll do it. That kind of stuff. So that was just kicking in. But there was major clubs like in LA, New York, Dallas, I think had the Comedy Corner already at that time. There was a few, but it didn't have that widespread, like, yeah, I'm going to be down in Salt Lick, Arkansas next weekend.
Right. Now, what was your look back then? Because I was telling Jimmy, the producer, you've gone through different looks. And it's funny, I was turned on to your act by our mutual friend, Neil Boble. And it's when Neil had worked with you. And you back then had like the rockabilly and the cool suits. So what was your look when you started? Because now you look like one of the Freebird wrestlers.
Someone told me the other day I look like Greg Allman. I
can see that. Like you look like a rocker. But when you started out, how were you dressing? And when did you decide to do that change in the look?
Well, I started in '79, so I had that kind of 70s John Denver kind of thing happening. The parted down the middle, still parted down the middle, but that kind of feathered thing, vest, kind of look. And then the '80s kicked in, and I went full blown into MTV. Like I had the big perm that was in that flock of seagulls kind of thing, and then I morphed into the rockabilly. I got big into rockabilly. Everybody always goes, "You look like Elvis," but it was really rockabilly. So I had the sideburns and the hair, and then from that I got into the multicolored suits in the '90s. So I already had the rockabilly, but I loved the bright suits of the '90s. So there was that change, and I've always constantly changed my hair, like from that to curls to once I dyed it black. Once I dyed it black with a white streak like a skunk. Once I dyed it bright red. And people go, "Why you keep changing your look?" You go, you're supposed to have a look. Look at like Robin Williams always looks like Robin Williams, or Pee Wee Herman always looks like. You got to have a look. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be pigeonholed. I just want to be funny. What do I feel like today?
So, okay. So when do you start working and breaking it? Because I know we talked about Evening at the Improv, and you did that 5 times. We're sitting on, it's so funny. I would watch that all the time on A&E. And there's people, I mean, it was 8 minutes, and it was a great show. And you see some people who sucked on it, but you see some really good people. It's like they find someone in the improv who's not that good, but he's probably working the door, so they put him up. But when did you start? When did you actually start you said you were going to Lubbock, you were going to these places, so you weren't headlining. When did you start that transformation into headlining, and was it quick? Because you seem like you were very dedicated.
Yeah, it was quick. It was it, probably probably a year into it was the first time I got asked to open a concert. I got asked to open for the band Chicago at the Summit. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I have that much material. I don't know what's the clean stuff. But once I got a credit like that, then it became easier to headline. And there wasn't a lot of people at that specific time who could do 45 to an hour, and I could. So uh, yeah,
What was your writing discipline back then? Because I always fascinates how different comics write, and I'm sure it's changed because, like anything, we evolve. Like I remember some guy I knew from Philly. He sent me a Facebook message. He goes, "You remember this bit? That was so funny," and I had completely forgotten it because my style has changed now, and I don't do
yeah.
it full time, so it's different. But when you were writing, when you started out writing, what was your process? Did you sit down? Because some people, I'll get an idea and I'll write it down. I'll put it on my phone. But some people I know sit down and they write. What was your process?
I can't sit down and write, but at the earlier process was to build my act. I tried to do five new minutes all the time, like 5 new minutes, and go, okay, 2 minutes worked. Set that aside. Now I got three. So then another 5 minutes. I kept doing that to build the act. And once I got to a certain point, I realized that I was a better writer on stage. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty good at improvising or improv. So I write better on stage because I take a concept or an idea that I have, and you probably know this too, how your body goes into fear. Say something funny right now,
Yeah.
you know. So and then you go, well, that's what I wanted. That's the joke that I.
Now, do you record yourself? So do you go back and then remember what you did? Because I've done, we all almost like run off with a nugget, and then I never record myself, and then you come off and you go, oh fuck, I should have written that down. But are you a constant? Well, not probably not now, but back then were you a constant recorder? Because
I
you'd always have that little micro cassette.
Yeah, I had a micro. I had did the micro cassette like everybody else, and then I saved up enough money and I bought the first little handheld video
The
recorder.
8 mil,
So
the
you
8 mil
never had
tape.
that little, yeah, the little. So I was recording like all my stuff for a while, and that helped. That helped so much because I realized I was doing a bit about driving, which this should have been but I'm like, so I'm driving my car. You know what I mean? I didn't notice that till I watched the video. Why was I going? So I'm driving my car. So it helps you with everything.
See, that's funny. Now, okay. So I want to get to. I know you worked with Dolly Parton.
Yes, I was her opening
Now,
act
okay,
for a year.
okay. So was that after Star? I want to get to Star Search too. But what was your what was your progression from Star Search and then to Dolly? I mean, what was it? You got Chicago at a young age, so you
Yeah.
opened for Chicago. But what was the progression as you were getting there? Because you've opened for other bands and you had the look, you had the look, and you had the chops. So what was your progression to like getting to a Dolly or then getting to Star Search? What came first?
Well, Star Search was first. That was back in the early '90s, and they had offered it to me several times, and I kept turning it down because I just didn't want to go on TV and lose when I'm already making a living headlining clubs. I just thought this'll look horrible, and so they came and offered me one more time, and they told me the names of some of the people that had already agreed to be on that season. And I thought to myself, if I lose to them, it's going to be okay because they're
Who were some
good
of the
comics.
names? Who were
Uh,
some of the names?
Honestly, at this point, I can't remember right now. But I
Okay.
remember thinking about other names that had been on too, like Kevin Meaney had been on, and all those kind of. It wasn't just nobody doing it. Uh, but when I lost, and I won't say the name of the person I lost to because she's still working, but I didn't think I should have lost in the semifinals. I just thought I was kind of robbed by the female judges. Um, and I came off stage and kicked a chair across the back of the room. And one of the producers that had talked to me and talked me into doing it goes, just look at it this way. You've joined a better list of comics because think of everybody who's lost. Name two people that have won Star Search.
Well, no, was it close between you and Louis C.K.? I mean, what was that the first round?
I don't remember which round it was, but I remember I had worked with Louis like a week or two before at a comedy club, and our dressing rooms were across the hall. So when it was my turn to go out, I knocked on his door and went, "Just remember who headlined last week."
See, I was telling someone about that. That's the one thing that I don't think it happens now as much, the camaraderie. Like I remember in Philly, like when we started working, you would just walk after, if you were featuring or if you're emceeing, and you would walk by if you had a really good set and you'd like, yeah, follow that. And you just walk away. But it wasn't being a dick. It was just, it put the headliner going, well, shit. Now I have to follow that, else he's going to give me shit. And he's going to be like, why are you headlining? But that's the way. I think that was the camaraderie back then. It was everyone helped each other out. But we wanted to blow people off the stage because if you were a feature, you were gunning. I remember I worked with this. I'm not even going to say his name. I don't even think he's still around. And I'm doing like a gig in West Virginia or something. And this guy would play the harmonica and it was just hack bullshit. And
Yeah.
I didn't take a watch on stage and I didn't give a shit. And next thing you know, I'm having a great set. And I get off stage. He's like, you did 40. I'm like, well, let's see you do 40. But that one, though, I wanted to blow him off the stage. But it was one of those things. But that wasn't a camaraderie because he was a douchebag. He's one of those guys. You remember you met him on the road. They take the wedding ring off and they lay at the pool and you see the tan line.
Yeah.
They're drinking the beers or scotch at like noon. They're just doing it because they don't want a real job, but they don't take it serious. And they did a bunch of hack shit. But club owners didn't care because if you were killing, they were like, "Hey, you're putting seats, you're putting asses in the seats."
Yeah, I had that conversation. I'll back up on something in a minute, but I had that conversation about the hacks in the business years ago with the guy that used to book the Comedy House in Columbia. It was in Columbia, and what was the other one? Augusta. And I said, this guy, some of these guys are just, they're best of albums. They're totally best of. They're taking jokes from other people, and that's why they're killing. And he goes, I don't care. He goes, I don't, he goes, you guys, the industry, you guys need to settle that. He goes, I don't care who, as long as they're, killing and selling drinks, I don't care. And I actually at one point said, well, then I don't want to work here anymore because I don't want my stuff stolen.
See, that's the thing. That's when you have to worry. That's what the club owners don't get. Because once again, people who own comedy clubs, not the people who own the bar or the club, they're businessmen. They're not creators. They don't give a shit. Like they don't understand the process. Like I had put okay, you'll love this. So I put a meme up and I didn't make a meme. Someone sent me a picture of me in college, passed out in like a t-shirt and shorts in a dorm room on a dorm sofa with a trash can next to me because I was sick. And I wrote up top, they asked me what was college like in the 80s. And I put that. Well, then I see this woman, I don't even know. I'm friends with her on Facebook, but I don't know her. She makes a meme out of it. So I send her a message and I go, what are you doing? She goes, what do you mean? I go, that's me. That's you stole. And she's like, well, no, once it's on the internet, it's whatever. And then she goes, I would think, I don't know you really, but it seems like you have no sense of humor. I'm like, you just stole my fucking joke. How do I have no sense of humor? But that's the thing. But that's like the club owner mentality. They don't care. And the hack I think the hack comics are such narcissists that they just want to get laughs. They don't understand, like, you have a great reputation. So if you sit there and go to a club owner, hey, such and such is doing this act. Some club owners will actually care. The club owners who own the better clubs.
Right. They like Randy Butler, who owned, Dallas Hyenas and those clubs. He was one of the guys that actually called me one time and goes, I got a guy here doing your stuff. What do you want me to do? There was people that were really policing and wanting comedy good, but I was always in it because of the art, and I don't think people are anymore. I think so many people just want to be celebrities, want to be the Kardashian of comedy. They just want to be famous. Because back in the day, and you might be like this too. I could tell you, like, that's a Shecky Green joke from 1963. I could, I knew the history. It was an art form, and
Well,
now people will do my stuff that I did on an album 20 years ago. I will hear it like I did that. So what? Well, it's already been done. Somebody wouldn't steal Carlin's. Here's a place for your stuff, but they don't care anymore.
yeah, and it's funny because you're right with that. I mean, I remember driving to gigs with other comics, and we would listen to, Dice's albums, and we listen to Sam's albums and Stephen Wright albums. And we were comics, and we would listen to this. And sometimes it would like when Dennis Miller was getting, because the White Album, Dennis Miller's, his very cool references. Well, that influenced your act a little bit, but you never took the bit. And that's right. The thing, because it was also, it's no fun. Like, I'll every once in a while, if I do a show, I host this one show on once a month. Before I bring the headliner up, I'll sit there and I'll do an old joke, like, but I say, hey guys, I got a joke for you to take to work. But I don't sit there and go on my stage like it's my joke.
Right. Yeah. And I think to go back to what you were talking about earlier about the hacks, I think that's what's happening right now in the comedy scene is the YouTuber TikTok people that are getting hired in the clubs. They're not comics. But they're putting asses in the seats so the clubs don't care. But I talked to a club owner that said, "Yeah, I know they walk half the audience, but I already have their money. Like I wish they could get,
right.
I wish they could do your show. I wish they got a standing ovation, but they're selling out 2 or 3 shows."
And it's funny. It also was back in the day when people would do the Tonight Show, and they would do 7 minutes, but they only had 12 minutes. But they would automatically get put up to a headliner. But then all of a sudden, you're headlining this club, and you maybe have 20 minutes, and you're working with someone who's been working for creative, on all the Southern and the Texas, who's headlining, and they go, well, you know what? We can feature. We'll pay you good. We'll feature, and then those features would just blow the headliner. And by the end of after 2 days in, I worked at a club with this. I was co-headlining with this ventriloquist, and he was awful. And I was sitting there, and I smoked them the first 2 shows, and they said, okay, we're going to have you close because we flipped. And I said, well, you have to pay me then. I'm not going to. But that's the thing. Yeah. But you know how it was, because they would put the people who had 7 minutes on, but someone like you, who, if they said, you would just smoke these people.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about how you would gun for somebody earlier. I remember the very first time I'd already been headlining for the Funny Bones, but I was trying to get into the improv chain. I had just moved out and got in with the improvs out in California. And so they were like, well, we know you headline for the Funny Bones. Ooh, but we're going to put you in as a middle in a couple of improvs and see how you do and see if, you're a headliner. So I was gunning. I was gunning. I'm talking about, I'm going to prove that I should be headlining. So the word got back that I was purposely destroying shows. So it backfired on me. It took me over a year to get back in with the improvs.
And it's so funny. You're purposely doing your job. Good.
Yeah.
And that's like if you're a great baseball player, we're going to bench you because you're purposely making our all-star who's sucking, making all this money. See, that's what I never got. Now, I want to get back to Dolly. No. Sure. After Star Search, what was okay? So you do Star Search.
Okay, so
you're already headlining.
I do Star Search. They I got a lot of recognition from it. It helped move me up. I got some other concert work from it.
Like who were some of the bands you work with? Because I know you're a big music guy.
I did the Beach Boys, Billy Ocean, Doobie Brothers. I did a bunch of BB King. I did so. I was thinking I was going to do a lot of that kind of work for a while, especially when I got with Dolly. Because, well, here's how I got the Dolly thing. I went down to hang out at the Improv in Hollywood. I just showed up. I wasn't scheduled. I was just hanging out. And somebody didn't show up, and they said, do you want to go up? So I said, yeah. So I went and did my set, this woman comes running up to me after, and she said, "I work with Dolly Parton. We need an opening act, and here's a card. If you're interested, have your agent call us." So I was just in the right place, right time. That was one of those weird things. So it turned out perfect. Dolly hired me as her opening act, and then she found out that I could sing, and I already sort of looked like Elvis. So she had me play Elvis in her show. So I opened the show and then came back later with a comedic Elvis outfit, the collar this high, belt buckle this big, and I sang Hound Dog. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, and and then we did a little skit together. She's like, "Elvis, I thought you left the building," that kind of stuff.
She is nice as she seems.
Oh, she is super nice, super nice. To show a little bit about what a real person she was, we were doing a several day run at the Mirage, and my parents flew out to see the show, and they'd never met Dolly. They were just in my dressing room, and she comes by and walks by and looks in and goes, "Who's this?" Comes in, sits down, talks to my parents. She's chatting with them. 3 days later, my mom and dad go, "We ran into Dolly in the casino." And she's like, "Hey, Nell, hey, Dan." She remembered their names and didn't have to. You know what I mean?
Now, so you're opening for her, and they're bigger venues.
Yeah.
So as a comic, because you've played a lot of big venues, how was it for you to transition from a 200-seat comedy club, which you get laughs and its thing, to a few thousand? Because then all of a sudden, people who don't do comedy don't understand laugh time. Like you do a joke. Like I did a small gig, and then I did a gig of like 150 the other night, which was a benefit, but I had to get acclimated to it because I was hosting the small gig. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you sit there and you almost step on your punchline because you're like, wait, is the laugh going to start? So was it easy for you to transition to the bigger rooms? Because your act probably went from, if you're supposed to do 30 minutes in a club, you'd probably do 26 minutes of material, whatever. But in a place like that, you'd probably do 20 minutes because the laughs make up for 10 minutes. So how did you learn that?
It took a couple of concerts, not with her as much, but regular concerts, like opening for like Billy Ocean at a room that had maybe 1,000 people, or something like that. Or when I did the Doobie Brothers in Vegas, you hear the laugh immediately, and then you realize, oh, it's coming in from the back. So right. I have to slow down. And in my timing, something I've always done for my own personal timing is I think of everything like a wave. Like if you're a surfer, you caught the wave, let it ride. Okay, it's breaking. The laughs are dying down. Talk again. So that's always been my timing. So I realize I need to let the laugh stop before I talk. So I knew they were coming in later. So it did take learning.
Yeah, because it's just also just scary. I mean, I talk to musicians where they go, like guys who played Live Aid, and they sit there and they go, you just look on the stage, they're at Wembley and at JFK in Philly, and they go, it's seas of people, and you look at it, and you don't know what to expect because it's and the energy you get. I mean, as you said, the laugh, it probably hits you right in the fucking face, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. So it was learned. It was fun. I think the biggest we ever did, and I can't remember the exact number. It was something like 30, 40, 50,000. I mean, it was 1,000 because we did the outdoor Michigan State Fair outdoor, and they had speakers set up like Woodstock, like here, way back here, and in the back. So that really was the wave. And I remember standing backstage and thinking I was going to puke. That I was so nervous. Like, this is a lot of people that might not like me,
It's so funny. That's how comics think. They can be killing in the clubs, but they always go, yeah, like as you said, oh man, these people, what if these people don't like me? But in your head, you have the chops you want to be opening for, but it's so funny how we do that. Like, oh my God, what if I suck? Like when I started out, I would go to like my first paid gigs, like these little bars in Philly, and you'd be driving, and I'd be like, well, what if nobody's there? And then, but what if there are people there and they don't like me? Then you get it all side your head. And once you get on stage, you're fine. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Why do we do that, Steve? Is it just an insecurity? Because I always say
It's,
performers, we're part narcissistic, we're part insecure. Because we have to
yes,
be. We want
yes.
to get it, but then we're afraid to get it.
I think it's exactly what you said, and I realized this just recently. Uh, Honestly, just recently, because I've been doing a lot of cruise ships or theaters, because I toured with the Deplorables for a while. We were doing theaters, and I got to the fact people would ask me to do something like, "Hey, you want to do a benefit for over such and such bar?" And I'm like, "No, because that's not set up for comedy, and I don't want to go over there and die. I don't want to go over there, you know." Because in your head, you know it. The sound has to be right. The lighting has to be right. This has to be right for good comedy. And I used to turn down a lot of stuff because I'm like, no, it's just not. It's somebody else can do that. I've worked too hard to go over there. Well, after my recent divorce, I realized I don't give a shit. I started working some bars again because I just wanted to work out some material. And I realized I was having fun, almost dying. You know what I mean? I didn't care about killing. I cared about having fun.
And I think that's what happens to a lot of us, like me as I do it now. I don't care and I have fun. And that's why I did it. And that's why in the beginning, I think that's all why we got into it, for the art and to have fun. But then it became such a business. And as you said, we said earlier, like the hacks were getting, this work that you wanted it to be your full-time job. So you stopped having fun because you
Yeah,
were
because you
worried.
want to
And I
kill.
think
You
we
want to
were
prove you
worried.
deserve it.
So when did you move? Okay. When did you move to LA? When I know, because what years were you in LA?
Well, I did it twice, sort of. I signed with a manager in the mid '80s, and I got with William Morris, and I was going back and forth to LA, and I didn't have a specific place, but I was
Where were
using
you living? Were
huh?
you living in Texas? Where
I
were
was
you
living in
living?
Denver.
Okay.
And I moved to Denver when I decided to become a professional comic, because a lot of guys don't. You've never really succeed in the city you start in. You kind of, people see you as the local. You're the best of the locals. So it's why people go to New York. You want to become bigger. So I just came to Denver because I always wanted to live in the mountains. So that was my. But okay, anyway, back to the William Morris in the '80s. So I was going back and forth, and then people started telling me, you're basically just coming out here and giving your material away. You show up, you leave, and everybody's like, I'll just take this. And I saw a couple of my stuff early in sitcoms. That the writers will sit in the back. I'm sure you heard about this. It became
Yeah, tell
very.
me.
Oh, like the writers would sit in the back of comedy clubs, especially on amateur nights, and I'd always heard that they're like, well, everybody's got one or two good jokes, and most of these people will never go anywhere. So they were stealing the best of jokes, and that's what somebody pointed out to me, that I wasn't on amateur night, but I wasn't a regular. I was just showing up. Hey, hope somebody likes me, hire me. Woo, back to Denver. So that was my
It's,
first little. But then when I moved to LA, I got with APA. I signed with APA and sold a sitcom. And so I was there from 93 to 90, almost 98. That was the window.
Now, was it a sitcom you developed?
Yes. I,
Okay,
I
tell me
had
what it was.
opened this. This is kind of funny. Again, right place, right time. I opened for Jerry Lee Lewis, and uh, that got me a job with the Beach Boys. And the first night with the Beach Boys, one of the higher ups the, at APA said, "If you had an idea for a sitcom, what was it?" Oh, I've got two or three sitcoms ideas. I've already written out some outlines. And he goes, "Give me an outline. Have one on my desk next week." So I got the outline. They loved the outline. I ended up writing the script with my now ex-wife. I wrote it, but she had an English degree, so she did the editing. Um, and Disney loved it. Disney loved the idea for the sitcom, so I got in pretty quick with that. But what happened was the sitcom was going great. I had an office at Disney, but they fired the guy who was our producer. So all of his projects got dumped. Like what they call it turnaround or whatever, where other people don't. Well, I don't want to give him credit, for him finding
Right.
you. So got dropped, and that's when I took the money
So
that I made and moved back to Colorado. Which now people tell me you should have stayed because your foot was in the door. You actually did something. They were looking at you. But I was like, I don't like this business. I don't like the way it's run.
But the thing is, and people don't know this, and you know my show Cooper Talk. I talk to a lot
Yeah,
of actors, and these guys, there's guys who have been on a sitcom or a drama for 4 years. My friend Lombardo Boyar was on Murder in the First, and it was 4 years. So he bought a house, and once again, studio changes hand. Great show, it gets canceled.
yeah,
Then he was in Coco the movie, but then he didn't work for a year and a half. And people don't get it. Even if your foot's in the door, they're no problem slamming it because
yeah,
there's always going to be something. And that's these guys I know on the Cooper Talk guys, these character actors. They tell me that when they started out, there was 10,000 of them, and now there's 40 of them. And they
yeah,
always know when someone gets a role, they go, he deserved that. He's better for that than I am because they've grown. I mean, they're 55, 60.
yeah.
They've been in the business for so long. But that's the thing for you though. When you moved back to Denver, when did you get into radio, and how did Mudflap come about?
Well, I got into from 97 to 99. I was working probably even before 97 because I signed with a manager in London, Ian Wilson, and I still work with Ian, but I started doing a lot of stuff around the UK. I toured around I had a special in the UK. I became bigger in the UK than I was in America. And I did my second special in was it I think 2000 there. And then I went to Melbourne Comedy Festival, and I just got burned on comedy. I thought, I'm doing well. I'm doing the best that I can do. I felt this. I and I've always felt that this industry isn't the fastest runner doesn't win this race. You know what I mean? The best comic isn't going to just go, you're the best. You deserve this. So I was just getting tired and tired of the road, and uh, my my wife at the time, said, do something else. Go try go back to acting, or at just about that time, I got offered the radio job in Denver, and so I took that job, and I was on the air for 6 months under my real name, Steve McGrew, and Denver rodeo was going on in town, and the female on the show said something about those red cows at the stock show, and I go, "Oh, you mean the Herefords?" And she goes, "You know cows?" I go, "Yeah, my dad raised Charlet. I grew up on a farm. There's that's a Brahma, and that's an Angus, and that's a I was." So we're joking about that stuff. And the other guy on the show was like, "Well, my dad was a professor in college," and I go, "So I'm the only redneck on a country station." you know and the program director heard that and called me in and goes, "We need to give you a country nickname. You need to have a nickname, so think about it and let's talk." So he calls me the next day and goes, "We're going to call you Mudflap." And I go, "Well, thank you for letting me think about it." So that's
So,
how that came about. I just became Mudflap. And everybody, it was so funny because a lot of comics would be like, "Why would you do that? Why would you work so hard to get your name out? You've already done like 4 comedy albums. You've done specials. Why would you?" And I go, "What is the difference between going to a TV station and playing a character in a sitcom, or going to a radio station and playing Mudflap on the radio?
so was
Either way,
Mudflap a
I'm getting a
character?
check."
Was Mudflap a character, or was it you? Just they called you Mudflap.
It was me. It was just me, but it is a radio character, because I'm the sidekick. I wasn't it's Kelly, Jonathan, and Mudflap. So basically, I was getting away with stuff that they couldn't. I had other DJs in town actually tell me we would probably be fired for some of the stuff you say, but I think they know you're a stand-up comic. So I think the audience knows, and they're letting you get away with it. You're not a DJ saying that.
So the station, you did well. The show was popular, right?
Yeah, I won 3 CMA awards for best morning radio person, country music award for best morning radio personality, and one Marconi, which is like the Academy Award of radio.
So what happened? I mean, because it's so funny. Real quick about radio, it's so funny. In Philadelphia, there's a station WMGK. It's classic rock.
Yeah,
And they have a guy, Andre Gardner. Been there for over 22 years. Does breakfast for the Beatles. He's a South Jersey guy. He lives in New York. All of a sudden, like 2 weeks ago, he posted on Facebook, and everyone was like, he got like 4,000 comments. He's like, today I found out, because the way Beasley Media is, or whoever it is, it's I'm no longer, this is my last day. Guy who did it for 22 years and you would hear him on Sundays. He loved the Beatles, and he was, everyone loved the guy.
yeah,
He knew music, like
and still making money.
Yeah, and all of a sudden he was gone. So what happened with you? Is it just because radio changed, like terrestrial radio didn't want to pay you guys, or what happened?
That, bam, nailed it right there. It was 2010, so I did it for, up to 2010, and then they called me in, and I that was right after. Remember, there was an economy thing was going down, like car sales were down, home sales were down, advertising on the station was coming down, and they just said that I was a budget cut. That I was going to be a budget cut. And I think, and I can't prove it, and I don't know for sure, but I think what happened, I was a budget cut. What was because the other partner wanted a raise. So the only way they could get a raise was to take the lesser, salary. I was already making less than them anyway, because I was just the third wheel on the show.
So then what do you decide to do? Because it's like the radio is a push, like Greg Kinn, who passed recently. Greg Kinn, the singer, he said, he was doing music in the 80s were ending, and he lived in San Francisco, and then they said, you want to be a morning DJ, like the morning show guy? And he's like, no. And he goes, and then they show me what they were going to pay me, and he's like, hell yeah. Like, he's like, I'd rather do this and stay and play some local gigs, because he was like, it was a lot of money, because there used to be a lot of money in radio. It's not that way anymore. But for you were already a successful comic, and then you were doing the radio, and so you sort of got that. You're used to sleeping in your own bed. We can say you're not going on the road. So all of a sudden that happens, and it's pulled out from under you. What do you decide to do?
Well, I had to sit out 6 months. I had a non-compete clause, so I had to sit out for 6 months. But I got hired across town at the other country station, which I did from 2010 to 2012. And the problem I had right at that point, at 2012, my partner on the show, a female that they had hired straight out of school, was absolutely horrible. And I even said to the program director in a meeting, I go, this is like playing catch with a mentally challenged child. I toss him, toss the ball, and it just bounces off her head. And I go, she can't improvise. She can't, you know what I mean? If I threw you something, you'd know to keep going with it.
Right.
It's not just look at you. I mean, you can't have silence on the air. I mean, take it in a different direction, if nothing else, But and most of her stuff, since she was new, she only had a very small reference. Younger people don't have a wide reference.
Right.
So everything would come back to, references that I couldn't relate to. And right at that time in 2012 was when that bad shit bro country was coming in. I hate bro country, and I hate new country now. I'm a huge country music fan. I even still sing country in my act on the ships, but I can't stand it, and I couldn't bring myself to go. And here's the new one, the new hit from Florida Georgia Line, because I hate that shit. I hate any kind. Well, I hate rap music. I absolutely hate rap. And when I saw it coming into country, it was going to destroy country, which is what it has done now.
But didn't you post that you like Jelly Roll?
Oh, hell no.
I thought you posted that. I thought it was you because I was surprised. I
No,
thought
I
you
posted
posted.
about Post Malone.
Okay, so you like Post Malone. What do you like about Post Malone?
He actually, he has kind of stayed true to real country. His album that just came out, I downloaded it just to find out, and there are some extremely good country songs. Like one that I'm like, damn, I wish I'd have written that. I'm not a huge fan of how he looks, or the tattooed faces, and because I think that's bad for our country. I just don't think people should be walking around. Look at me, I should be in a circus. Um,
Right.
but I liked his stuff, and he's recording now with like Dwight Yoakam, and he's done some stuff with the classic people. He honestly likes classic country.
Okay.
Where
Okay.
Jelly Roll to me is just, he's a rapper that they said, okay, you're a country star now.
Okay. I want to switch gears right now. I want to talk about. I was on your podcast, which you should start again. It was Remasculate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did that come about, and why did you stop it? Because it was good. You had Jenna Elfman on it, for Christ's sake. I was like,
Yeah,
Jenna
Elfman.
Jenna Elfman. I'm like, I got her husband. I got Bodie. You got
Yeah.
Jenna, and I was like,
Yeah.
Bodie, man, get me Jenna, and he didn't. But
Well,
how did tell these people what Remasculate was about? Because I know,
well, Remasculate started in 2010 or 11, because I saw. Well, it'd been coming since the 90s. I've always been a linear thinking person. Like, if this is happening now, what's it going to be like in 10 years? And my dad always taught me that kind of like what you do now affects the rest of your life. So I always had that kind of. So I was seeing like all the commercials, like the dumb husband, the wife is always smarter. The always, the kids were being, and in sitcoms, I had this discussion back when I was writing a sitcom. They wanted the kid to have zingers. And I go, Opie never zinged Andy. I go, my son has never said anything smarter than me. My son has never zinged me. So I saw what they were trying to do. So I wanted to say we need to bring men back. The man, it's time to stop all this making us look bad, and women are always right. You know, so that was the start of Remasculate. And a friend of mine who I started with, Jeremy Paget, he had just had a kid, and he kind of felt the same way. So he was the younger guy, and I was the older. Like here's what you should be doing with your son. You should buy your son a BB gun. Remasculate that child. So that's how the whole thing got started, and then it just
why'd
turned
you
into
stop?
more of it. Huh?
Why'd you stop?
Well, I stopped because it became harder and harder to do when I was traveling on the road. When I was doing the radio, it was good, and then I got where, and you know this too. It's when a guest drops out like an hour before you're supposed to
Yeah.
record. Then
See
then I
now. See,
then
for me
I
now, like, it sucks because you don't do, like, when I was in LA, they would come into the studio, and all of a
yeah.
sudden you're like, shit. But now I do this on Tuesday nights, but Cooper Talk I just do anytime because I record from home. But so
Yeah.
yeah, and getting guests is really hard. So once again, I wanna ask you something because you're doing a lot of cruise ships, okay?
Yes.
And now your social media, which we'll talk about Liberal Larry, which cracks me up. I don't talk politics in the show, but Liberal Larry's funny as shit. That could be like the next Borat. I mean, it's just it's I messaged you at one time. It's funny, but you're very political on social media. Very,
Yes.
very political.
And only on social media. My act.
Yeah. So when you go on
None.
stage, okay. So do people who follow you on social media, when they come to see you, do they expect you to be the social media guy, and are they surprised when you do what you do? Because I was telling people, I go, Steve's very conservative, very, on with Instagram and Twitter, but on stage, he's a professional. Because I think the reason is you don't want to divide your audience, I'm guessing.
No, I don't. Stand up is stand up. Comedy is comedy. And but my stand up comes from a country sensibility, right and wrong. So if I'm talking about a kid, what you should do with this kid, or my marriage, the guys should be allowed to do. It comes from a sort of a right side thinking, not like, men should be more understanding of women's rights. Like, that's not happening. So it's always coming from. That's why even when I toured with the Deplorables, they were doing more political stuff, and I was basically just doing straight stand up from a possibly conservative angle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask you because I talk to a lot of comics, and like I work with one of the guys I work with every once in a while, Joe Matarese. I open for him. We did City Winery together. We do gigs, and we get the same crowd. We get the 40 and up, Jersey, Philly, Jewish, Italian crowd. Okay. And no one gets offended. Now I know in clubs, a lot of people don't like to play clubs. What are cruise ships like? Like, what is the crowd when you go? Because first of all, how many shows you do? Don't you have to do like a clean show and then you do an adult show, or how many shows when you go out on a cruise for a week? How many shows you doing?
Well, it depends on the ship itself, on the size of the ship. Like some of the bigger ships they have an actual comedy club. So I will do 2 to 3 shows a night, depending on the ship. So that
Is,
like
is it just you? Is it just you,
no,
or
it's
is there
two
a few other
comics,
acts?
two comics. So it's like the old Vegas days. Vegas back in the 90s was 3 shows a night, 21 shows. So it's sort of that. But on the smaller cruise ships, you'll do 1 clean family show and then 1 late night adult show. So you really have to do. You have to be able to do both. And I just had a meeting with one of the entertainment heads over there, and they told me that I was one of the few comics that they have that not only can I do it, but I kill on both shows. It's not just, well, he's a really clean comic, but the adult show is lacking, or he kills at the adult show, but he just doesn't have the chops to do a family show.
So
So
how many minutes are you doing in these shows? Like okay, when you do an adult show and a child show, they have to be completely separate acts, right?
yes, completely separate. And
So
again,
how
it
many
depends.
minutes?
Again, it depends on the show. I mean, on the ship, because it can be a 20-minute, 2 20 minutes for the comedy club with 2 comics, or it might be a 40-minute clean adult show in the theater. So it really depends.
So what are the crowds like? Because you're getting people from all over, and once again, good comedy is universal. I mean, let's
Yeah.
just be honest. So do you see that? Like, why do you think you get? I mean, besides being a great comic, why do you think you get the standing O's? Because you constantly get, and I believe you, because some people go, I got a standing O, and one person might stand up. That's not a standing O. But why? And when did you start getting standing O's? Because comedy clubs wouldn't give standing O's back in the day.
No, I started getting them back in the early 90s. Because I used to always close my show. Well, I'm a firm believer in it's an art form, so it's a theater show. So it should go. I start slower, and you build. You get faster, you get stronger and edgier. And back then, I would close with a musical number, like because I didn't look like somebody that liked country music. So I'd go, if you don't think I like, shout out a song title, and I would just sing, like part of the song. Merle Haggard, I turned 21 in prison, doing a life without parole. Next, so it was kind of that. And then I would close out with everybody singing Friends in Low Places.
Okay.
So
So
it became, it really was one of those cheerleader things at the very end for that. But for now on the ships, I've done it where I figured out that you have to do this, but you bring it to everybody's got one joke that is your closer, that this will, and you build it until that very last, and you go, boom, thank you, good night, and they're like, oh my God, I didn't expect that.
So how often do you change your act up these days? Or do you, when you go on the cruise ships, you do pretty much the same act? Or how often do you write? Like
Well,
nowadays?
I write every day, because if you see my Twitter, that I tweet a lot. So what went from writing ideas is now writing for X. And if something works, then I go, oh, I have the punchline. Now I have to write a bit around it.
Okay.
So you write a quick little, if it jokes a punchline and they're retweeting and liking, you go, okay, that works. I need to put that in my act.
Okay, now tell me more about liberal Larry. And I sent you a message. My wife's liberal. I'm an independent. I'm
I
down the
know.
middle. I don't
We've
talk
talked about
politics.
this.
Yeah, but liberal Larry makes me fucking laugh. And I told my wife, I said, it's pretty funny. And my wife has a sense of humor. She would crack up at it. But tell me, how did liberal Larry come about? And it's so funny because if it's one of those things, even if you're hard left, you can't get offended by it because it's like getting, as I said, it's like getting offended by Borat. But when did you start liberal Larry and then you sit there with your shirt off and you have the pussy hat on and all that? When did it start?
Well, the original Liberal Larry video, the very, very first one, did not have the pink hat. It was me crying. It was crying in a video that Trump had won. I can't believe this. The world is, he wants us to get jobs. He's going to, my mom already said, I'm going to have to move out of the basement. And that was the very first one. And that got like 10 million views. I mean, it just went crazy because everybody thought I was for real. But then I realized this could be a character, like just a whiny character. And I started paying attention to the videos that liberals were posting, you know, and they say the most bizarre crap. And all you got to do is almost repeat it. It's almost like holding a mirror up. And as a comic, all you got to do is make a slight twist at the end. And then I realized, I, then it became like people didn't know if I was real or not because they are saying almost the same stuff that I was saying. Like, men can have babies. Who's to say that a man can't have a baby? You know what I mean? Like, see, you're smiling, but that's
So
real. That is a real argument now.
now when did you put the hat on?
The hat started as a Rasta. I did a Rasta. I was working in Jamaica on a ship, and I saw a Rastafarian hat, and I bought it. And I thought, okay, I'm a dope smoking hippie leftist. That was where the arc was starting. And then the whole pussy parade thing happened with the pussy hats, and I go, oh, yes, yes. So it went to the pink hat, and then one video I shot in bed with no, I was just laying in bed. I didn't have a shirt on. So Larry, as you know, is naked now. He's just
I
naked.
didn't know. Okay, I didn't know he's naked.
Yeah. So Larry never wears clothes because clothes are racist. The indigenous people, nobody wore clothes before the white colonists got here and were, like the women did not need to see that, put some clothes on. So that's why Larry doesn't wear clothes because clothes are the symbol of racism.
Yeah. So okay, so Larry's blown up, but now I also see that you've been writing music with someone too. So you're really diversing a lot. Now you've been writing music with. I see you. There's a country actor working with.
Yeah, a guy named his name is Shake Russell. He's a big singer songwriter in Texas. I mean, he's like a Texas legend, and he's also written for Waylon Jennings and Miranda Lambert and Clint Black and a lot of other people. So he is a singer songwriter in his own, but a writer. And I had met him back in the early '80s down in Houston, hanging out at the clubs, and hadn't talked to him in years. And I had an idea for a song about John Denver. I just was kind of hanging one day here in Denver, and I thought, man, times were so much happier and simpler back when we could just listen to a John Denver song. None of this stuff was going on that's happening today. And wouldn't it be nice if you just put on a John Denver album and let it take you back to a? So I wrote this song, and I sent it to Shake, and I said, "Look, I know we haven't talked in years. You may not remember me, but I got this idea." And he checked it out and wrote back, "I would love to write this with you. I think there's something here." So we wrote that song, and now it's on an album. It's actually on an album.
So we got to wrap up soon. What is your? Are you going to keep doing cruise ship? But you're still doing club. You just played in Alabama, the Stardome, I believe,
I just did
right?
that. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
still doing clubs, but I'm mostly doing the ships now because the money's great. They actually have a comedy club on the ship, so I'm allowed to say anything I want in the club. You can't in the theater, but in the club they even tell you if you're easily offended, get out. This is not a safe space. So I feel like I'm back in a club setting for a while. And I had talked to the Funny Bone not long ago about trying to get back into some of those, and was told we can't pay you what the ships pay. So, why would I take a cut and pay?
Right, right.
So,
So do you still love it? Like, do you still love doing stand up? I mean, is it something you'll keep doing? I mean, because sometimes people, said now you seem like you're having more fun, but
yes,
why do you love it? Like, if someone said to you, Steve, why do you love stand up? What would you say?
I think it's amazing that you can think of something and make a room full of strangers laugh, because I've turned this on myself. I still love making people laugh, but every once in a while I go, I've wasted most of my life making other people happy. Yes, I've made a living. Yes, I paid for my house. Yes, it's bought my car, but it's destroyed a couple of marriages. I miss my kid growing up. So basically, I've given myself so other people can be happy, and I'm okay with that. But now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, I only want to do it if it makes me happy. So I'm only choosing to do shows. Like I'm cutting back on the cruise ship this year. I'm still doing it. I'm just not doing as many weeks, but I still love making people laugh.
Well, that's awesome, man. I want to thank you for coming on, and I'll give all your social media because you're all over social media. Well, give your handles.
Well, it's Remasculate on Twitter. It was at Steve McGrew. I was a verified, but Twitter killed my account with 113,000 because remember back a couple years ago they were like, "You're conservative, get out." So it's Remasculate there.
So it's Remasculate.
Remasculate at Twitter, X, and then there's Steve Mudflap McGrew on Facebook, and Steve Mudflap McGrew Instagram, and it's Steve McGrew on YouTube. And my YouTube channel is starting to take off again. I've started posting. I'm creating more shorts, like people do this the 30-second. I'm doing more of those, and I've got a bunch of new followers over there.
Now, is Liberal Larry on your page, or does he have his own page?
Well, Liberal Larry got killed by Twitter. He had his own account. Twitter killed his account because they said he wasn't a real person. But they realized that Liberal with Larry was making fun of liberals, and I think that's why Twitter killed it. But Liberal Larry is on YouTube. I still do all of his videos. They're on my channel, and I share it on all my social media.
All right, well, man, this has been great. People, go check out Steve. If you're on a cruise ship and you hear he's playing, you gotta go check out the show. If you're in the town that he's playing, you gotta go see him. And seriously, I don't care what your political affiliation is. Go watch some of these Liberal Larry videos because they're fucking funny. And people, you can check out. Well, go to YouTube, go to Comedy Trainwreck, and you have my show. You have a Corey Alexander's show. You have a Coleman Green show. You have the Cancel Culture. You have Ed McGonigal. We get some great Philly comics, and Jimmy Corrigan does a great time producing them. You can also go to YouTube and look up the Coop Tank. That's my weekly local business show. I moderate a roundtable of 3 business owners. We just talk about what you love about your job, what you do, why you do it. And then don't forget coopertalk.net. I have 1,026 episodes. My friend Paul Ben Victor just recently did my show. You know him. He's been in everything. He's a wonderful guy. And you can always email me at coopertalk.net. So that's about it. I'm going to thank you for watching or listening or whatever you're doing. Follow Steve. And if you follow him, send him a message saying, start doing Remasculate again. Anyway, thank you all, and I'll talk to you next week.
Coop's Comedy Corner.